Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just officially welcoming all of you guys to Wat Tung, Sawadee Kap, Ni Hao for those of you guys that are from China. Lots of people from China today, and I don't speak all your languages, but welcome to Wat Tung. Today is the Pali Canon and English study group where we study the original words of the Buddha, and I'm going to share with you guys what that is once we get to it. There's various programs and various courses that we have here, and there's certain introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. There's foundational programs and courses and things like this. In fact, today, once a month, we teach an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, which is going to be today from 1 to 4 p.m. So if you're brand new to the teachings of the Buddha and you've never actually learned them before, that's a great opportunity for you. It's a 3-hour little course from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. where I'm going to be introducing students to the teachings of the Buddha so that you'll be able to learn his very first teaching and really starting from the beginning. And there's even a program starting next week from Monday through Friday, which is a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course. This particular program, it's an ongoing program that meets every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and then also at 9 p.m. So we meet here at the temple at 9 a.m. and I also live stream. So welcome to all of you guys that are online. And then also at 9 p.m. I teach this same class from home and I live stream that. So no matter where you are, you'll be able to attend a live class. And I do this on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. On Saturdays is the Pali Canon and English study group, which is what I'll share with you guys here in a moment. And then on Sundays and Wednesdays is the group learning program. So the way that we start our classes, we start with meditation. The teachings of the Buddha, it's about training your mind to be able to get to the enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is where you're training your mind to uproot certain pollutions or defilements that the Buddha discovered using the tools and techniques that he taught in order to move the mind to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. The teachings of the Buddha, it's not belief. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. There's not all this superstition and auspicious. There's not all this mystical, magical stuff. It's not about prayer or worship. It's about learning teachings. It's about reflecting on those teachings to independently verify them. And it's about practicing the teachings and training your mind, uprooting these pollutions out of the mind. And this is where you see the peacefulness, the calmness, the serenity, the contentedness, and the joy come into the mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, the boredom, the loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the enlightened mind. You'll get to a point where your mind's focused, concentrated, having clarity of mind and deep memory. You'll notice your personal, professional relationships will really blossom because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships anymore. Right now, that's probably challenging for you. Based on the situation of your mind, you might find that in certain relationships, you are kind of bitter and harsh and hostile. And maybe people are that way with you too. But as long as you're putting that out in your relationships, that's what will come back to you. So the teachings of the Buddha are to teach you how to transform your mind and move your mind to this enlightened mental state, which you can do through the various tools and techniques that he taught. One of the things that he taught is meditation. So we're going to start class with that. But there's more than just meditation that you would need to know in order to get to enlightenment. So that's why I share that there's these other courses that are actually quite helpful for someone to get started, because I can tell a lot of you guys are maybe just getting started or learning with me for the first time. This particular program, while you're definitely going to learn something today, it's not necessarily where somebody would typically start. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is some people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated and instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. It took lots of other work and lots of other tools and training to be able to get to the enlightened mental state. But because meditation is so important and you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation, I start each one of these courses and programs and classes with an actual meditation. So I'm going to guide you in breathing mindfulness meditation. The way that I do this is I start with chanting. There's these chants that we use, which are in the Pali language. The original teachings of the Buddha are in what's called the Pali Canon, which is written in the Pali language. So we chant in the Pali language. And today we use these chants to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used the chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that everything that he taught was oral. So as he taught, the students once every 2 weeks would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word through chanting. And this is how chanting was started during the lifetime of the Buddha. Nowadays, some people think that there's maybe some mystical or magical things associated with chanting. This isn't actually true. It's not a prayer or worship or anything like that, but you're going to hear me doing some chanting as we ease into meditation, and you're actually welcome to chant along if you like. There's on laminated sheets over there on the table, we have the chants that you can feel free to get yourself one if you like. And if someone would like to hand them out, you're welcome to hand them out. You guys can see what the actual chants are. They're in the Pali language, and there's the English translations on there as well. And if you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha. I don't think that the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by one of his students or a combination of many of his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't walk around arrogantly teaching people to chant something to him as a way of showing appreciation, gratitude, and respect. Instead, the students, having learned from him how to move from this anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the enlightened mind, where the mind's peaceful and joyful, they had a lot of respect for him. And if you ever get to the point where your mind is experiencing more and more of that peace and joy, you might have a lot of respect for the Buddha too. So these chants, they're not mystical, magical. It's not prayer. It's not worship. The Buddha is not coming in and trying to fix anything in your life. It's not actually possible for that to occur. It has to come from your decisions and your wisdom. So these chants, they're to help ease the mind into meditation so you can get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So you're welcome to chant along if you like. After I do the chanting, I'm going to guide you in meditation so you can hear how to actually meditate. I'll be kind of teaching you meditation and guiding you in the meditation at the same time. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet. We'll just all be meditating together here at the temple, and those of you guys online, we'll just all be meditating together. Of course, you're going to hear the occasional sound, right? It's not possible for it to be permanently quiet. You're going to hear here, you're going to hear a little bit of a tool, and that's actually really wonderful for your mind, because your mind needs to learn about impermanence, and that it's not possible for things to be permanent. You might hear a dog barking, you might hear a bird chirping, you might hear any number of things, a car going by. This is really helpful for the training of your mind. It's not possible to be in permanent quietness. So if you can only meditate when it's permanently quiet, well, it's not going to be permanently quiet anywhere. So by training your mind to be exposed to a little bit of sound is actually really helpful for you. So after the period of time where we're all meditating together, then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then from there, I'll start the class and share with you guys what the Pali Canon and English study group is. So if you'd like to join for meditation, we meditate in 4 different positions. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. And oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, either sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair. These are very common ways to learn, but there's other positions too that I teach in the various programs that I share. In the seated position, if you're on the floor, usually students like to have a cushion under their rear and maybe kind of cross their legs lightly, where if you have your legs crossed really, really tightly, this will inhibit the circulation and you'll experience pain. So just having some light crossing of your legs would be really helpful. Some people even like to put their legs off the mat. It's really up to you. It doesn't matter how you sit as long as your body's comfortable. I'm just giving you a couple of pointers. Everybody can sit however you'd like to sit. There's not just one permanent way that everybody needs to sit. When people put their legs off the mat, it gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And some people like that because it helps the circulation flow. With your hands in your arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But not everybody's going to find that comfortable. If you like that and you find it comfortable, use it. It's up to you, right? But there's other options here as well. You could put your palms on your thighs or on your knees or your palms up. You could rest your hands comfortably in your lap. This practice isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way, because that's not possible. All of our bodies are different. They're all very unique. There's lots of impermanence in the world, and it's not possible for everyone to find exactly the same thing comfortable. You're not interested in your body being painful, but you're not interested in being luxurious either. So you would like to ensure that the body's comfortable. So the lower body and hands and arms should be comfortable. And if you're in a chair, you might just sit with your legs or your feet flat on the floor or cross at the ankles, and same thing with your hands and arms resting comfortably. So the lower body and hands and arms should be relaxed and comfortable. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session, and you'd like your mind to be attentive and alert. So by having the upper body erect, it keeps your mind attentive and alert. It also helps you to breathe, because if your sternum's up and your shoulders are back, it allows you to breathe in through the nose nice and comfortably. If you were slouched, it'd be challenging to breathe, and also your mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic or complacent. But if you were real rigid, your mind might be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle where it's erect, and this will keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to follow along with and chant, and then I'll be back with some guidance in the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Wat Tung Mahakewanang Apivatemi Savakato Mahakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Namasati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath isn't going to necessarily match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose, or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอะภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะเตOkay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I'd like to welcome all of you guys here at the temple, including those of you guys that joined us since we started meditating. Welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone online as well. Nice to see you guys are interested in learning the teachings of the Buddha. For those of you guys that are here at the temple, if this is your first time here, I'd like to just let you know that there's a bathroom in the very back of the room, the very last door on the right. You're always welcome to get up and use the restroom at any point. You can just come and go as you please. There's even a bathroom outside this classroom. If you walk outside the classroom, you can follow the signs around to the main temple bathroom, and from there you'll be able to use the main bathroom over there. We even have water here that is provided by our students, so feel free to help yourself to any water, make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home. Okay, so this meditation that we just did, this is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a meditation that the Buddha used as a primary form of training, in addition to other things, to be able to move his mind to the enlightened mental state. This meditation, the goal is to cultivate mindfulness or awareness of mind, to cultivate concentration or singleness of mind, focus and clarity. And then you're also training your mind to let go. So if during your meditation you are bombarded with thoughts, this is very normal when you're first starting to meditate. You might have thought, or you might have had a thought and then you indulge in that thought for a period of time, you followed it, And then like 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. Get back over here, right? This is very common. You're not bad at meditation. You haven't done anything wrong. This is just your mind being undisciplined. It's uncontrolled. You're not able to control your mind right now. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. That's not actually what you're attempting to do. Some people think based on the instructions and the guidance that you're trying to eliminate your thoughts. But as long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. You can't eliminate your thoughts. But what you would like to do is gain control and discipline of your mind. So where you have a thought, you would like to notice that sooner and sooner and sooner, and then be able to easily cut it off and let it go during meditation. Okay, so we're training our mind in meditation to be able to have mindfulness or awareness of mind, concentration, and the ability to let go, let go, let go. Because what's causing these discontent feelings, where the mind's angry, frustrated, irritated, and all these other discontent feelings, is that the mind's holding on. It wants to hold on. It wants things a certain way. If you get things the way you want, you feel happy. You feel excited. You feel elated. Like, yeah, I got what I want. Yay, it's so happy. But then you can't get what you want permanently. So when you don't get what you want, you feel sad and angry and frustrated. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll eliminate this. You'll eliminate the mind forming its inner feelings based on some condition. Right now, like I mentioned, if you get what you want, certain craving, certain expectation, certain desire, certain thing that you want, you'll get happy, excited, elated, pleasant feelings. But if you don't get what you want, you get these painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. And it's no fun experiencing those things. And this is because the mind's holding on. It's wanting things a certain way. So if in your meditation 20, 30, 50 times, you had to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, and keep coming back to the breath, wonderful. This is excellent for the mind, because in daily life, now when you're out and about in daily life and you're noticing the anger starting to arise, or you notice the shyness or the jealousy or the resentment or any kind of guilt or shame, if you're noticing that with your mindfulness awareness of mind, and you can cut off and let go, you can let that go. Right? And if you do that enough times in your meditation and outside of meditation, along with all the other aspects to be able to get to enlightenment, you'll experience the peace and joy of the enlightened mind. It just takes time to gradually train the mind in that direction. So in meditation, we're training in one way. We're cutting off anything and everything that's coming up. And this is helping to discipline the mind and control the mind. But then in daily life, you're only going to cut off the unwholesome things. Right? So if you see anger, sadness, frustration, any of these discontent feelings starting to arise, you'd like to cut it off. Or if you feel like you want to punch somebody in the face, cut that off. You feel like you want to steal something, cut that off. You feel like you're going to lie, you want to lie, cut that off. You feel like you want to yell at somebody or be bitter and harsh and hostile, cut that off. Right? But if you would like to take your mom out to dinner, hey, that's generosity. That's very lovely. Go do that. You don't need to cut that off. Right? Are you thinking about calling up your dad and checking in on him, see how he's doing? Go ahead, go forward. You don't need to cut that off. So in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything. This is exercising the mind, much like you would exercise a muscle. We're exercising it in a certain way to gain certain qualities and discipline and control. But then in daily life, you're using the qualities from your meditation to be able to then train your mind on a consistent, ongoing basis. It's kind of like a professional athlete will go into the gym. They might do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training, but then when they do their sport, it looks completely different than their training. So if I was a pole vaulter, for example, my training in the gym would look very different. I'm not going to just go pole vaulting all the time. You need to do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. You need to do all these different things, but then your sport looks very different. So it's the same thing as when you're exercising the mind in meditation, it looks different than what you do in daily life. Is that in meditation, you're developing that awareness of mind or mindfulness, the concentration, and the ability to easily cut things off and let it go. And then in daily life, wherever you notice unwholesome things coming up, that's what you cut off. And the Buddha is going to teach you through his teachings what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. But then that's where you, as your own independent practitioner, you need to be able to see the truth. The teachings of the Buddha, they're not rules or commandments. It's not the Buddha telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing. Instead, he's helping you to see the wisdom of true reality and of the natural laws of existence. And as you learn his teachings, you reflect on them to independently verify them, and you practice them, you'll start to learn more and more what's wise and unwise, wise, what's wholesome and unwholesome. And then you'll be able to see the truth for yourself as the condition of the mind is gradually improving. That when you're seeing more and more peacefulness and joy come into the mind, you'll know that these teachings are working. And this is how you can verify that as you're verifying his teachings little by little by little, then in you implementing those into your life, you'll see the condition of the mind in your life improve, because your relationships will be improving. You're going to notice more and more peacefulness, more and more concentration, more focus. You're going to notice that you can get to a point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore, because you've uprooted the conditions that are causing the bad mood. So there's various programs that I teach, as I mentioned, that will help you to develop a foundation in these teachings to be able to learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. This particular program is one that students usually will come into after they've learned some of the foundational programs and some of the foundational teachings. If this is your first time learning with me, which I know many of you it is, that's okay. You can learn today. I'm going to show you how we do this. This is more of a study group versus the other programs where it's more of a traditional style of learning, where I'll be teaching for 20, 30 minutes or so, and then I open up to questions from students. Then I teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up to questions from students. This is what I'm going to be doing this afternoon from 1 to 4. It's an introduction to the path to enlightenment. You'll be able to learn in that course the very beginning teachings of the Buddha to get started. And then I do this tomorrow on Sunday, which is our group learning program. I teach as a foundational program. And then also the same thing on Monday through Friday next week. It's more of a foundational program, where this one, students will usually have already studied with me for maybe 6 months, a year or so before they move into this program. What we do here is I have these chapters from this book series. This book series that I share is 13 books. And the very foundational programs, we study volume 1. We go through that book. But this program in the Pali Canon and English study group, we study volumes 2 through 13. And it's a 1.5-year program to actually study the words of the Buddha. And we're in volume 11 now. We're actually finishing up volume 11. So this is really towards the end of the program. And we're actually studying chapters 141 through 148 today. And the way that I do this is I invite students here at the temple, and those of you guys on Zoom, that if you would like to read one of these chapters, and these chapters are quite small, you can see this is barely even a page long. What a student will typically do is read the chapter, and then I will share some teachings on that, and then open up to any questions that you guys have. It's more of a study group versus a traditional style of learning. And then, as you guys would like to volunteer to read here at the temple, if you wouldn't mind using the microphones that are in the white bowl, that way the people online will be able to hear you, and we'll also be able to hear you here at the temple too. The microphones, they have a gray button on them. You just press the button, you'll see the lights come on, and you just wait a second or two, and then you hold it up to your chin, and then we'll be able to hear you here at their temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And if you'd like to keep the microphone with you, that's wonderful, because then you can share it around to the different people as they either are interested in reading or they might have a question. You can just share the microphone around. And then for those of you guys in Zoom, if you would like to volunteer to read, you can electronically raise your hand in Zoom, and I'll be able to see that. And then you can open up your microphone, and we'll actually be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you on the live stream as well. And then as we go, as you have questions, same thing, you can actually use the microphone. And then those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. I'll see your question in the comment section. I'll be able to answer it for you. And for those of you guys in Zoom, you have the added functionality that you can electronically raise your hand and ask questions that way too. So is there someone who would be interested to volunteer to read this first chapter for us? Yes, sir. There's a microphone there in the white bowl. If you could just hand him that. There you go. And there's a little button on the front. There you go. It just takes a second to press the button. It should have lights that come on. You see the lights? There, it's on now.
Whoops. Remember me, Brahman, as awake, a Buddha. Could you be a heavenly being, sir? I will not be a heavenly being, Brahman. Could you be a Gandhava, sir? I will not be a Gandhava, Brahman. Could you be a Yaka, sir? I will not be a Yaka, Brahman. Could you be a human being, sir? I will not be a human being, Brahman. What then could you be, sir? Brahman, I've abandoned those taints, fetters, because of which I might have become a heavenly being. I have cut them off at the root, made them like palm stumps, obliterated them so that they are no longer subject to future arising. I've abandoned those taints, fetters, because of which I might have become a Gandhava, might have become a Yaka, might have become a human being. I have cut them off at the root, made them like palm stumps, obliterated them so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Just as a blue, red, or white lotus flower, though born in the water and grown up in the water, rises above the water and stands unsoiled by the water, even so, though born in the world and grown up in the world, I have overcome the world and reside unsoiled by the world. Remember me, Brahman, as awake, a Buddha.
Okay, thank you. So this is a teaching where the Buddha is talking to someone referred to as a Brahmin. I'll explain to you what a Brahmin is, so you understand what that is, and then I'll explain to you what this discourse is helping you to understand. What a Brahmin is during the lifetime of the Buddha, and even now, there's individuals who were born into a caste system. The Buddha was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in what we refer to as Northeast India, but at that time it wasn't that. So there's people in that region of the world that are considered Brahmin, or we might refer to them as Hindu priests, that they're born into a certain caste family, and then if you're born into this family, you're considered to be holy. And this is not what the Buddha taught, but this is what was going on during this time. So a Brahmin is someone who's essentially doing rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and guiding people to think that those things can actually help them and actually lead to a better way of life. And these Brahmin were doing things oftentimes very opposite of what the Buddha was doing, because the Buddha wasn't teaching rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. He was teaching to train your mind. He didn't teach that rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship would improve your life because they don't help you to cultivate wisdom. The Buddha is helping you to cultivate wisdom. So oftentimes these Brahmin would come to the Buddha for guidance as students. In this particular story here, this particular discourse, this Brahmin is coming to the Buddha and saying, hey, like, what are you? Right? Because they're seeing that he's very peaceful, he's very calm. You know, this Brahmin doesn't necessarily know he's a Buddha. You might think that if a Buddha is in the world, that everybody must know that that person's a Buddha. But that's not the way it actually is. A Buddha isn't interested necessarily in everybody knowing that they're an actual Buddha. It's better if people don't know that they're an actual Buddha, because they can be more effective as a Buddha by observing the mind of their students and then helping them. Whereas if everybody knew who a Buddha was, like if their ear was turned a certain way or their nose was turned a certain way, a lot of people would be on their best behavior around that Buddha. And then the Buddha wouldn't be able to observe their mind. That's one of the greatest powers of a Buddha, is that they can observe the mind of other people, and then they can help them with teachings if they would like teachings to be able to help them. So if everybody knew who he was and that he was a Buddha, then his power to help others would be rendered ineffective. So here, this individual doesn't know that he's a Buddha, doesn't even know what a Buddha is, and just coming in contact with the Buddha is saying, hey, essentially, are you going to be reborn as a heavenly being? And the Buddha says, I will not be a heavenly being, Brahmin, meaning I won't be reborn. And then there's these other beings that existed during the lifetime of the Buddha that we don't necessarily refer to these beings in the same way, but asking about these particular beings. And then finally he says, could you be a human being, sir? Meaning, like, in the future, could you be reborn as a human being? And the Buddha says, I will not be a human being, Brahmin. Right? And then he says, okay, well, what could you be? And then finally what the Buddha says to the Brahmin is, I've abandoned the taints or the fetters. These are the 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind that are keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. He calls them a fetter because during his lifetime, there was something called a fetter that would keep a prisoner trapped in a certain area. What a fetter is like a shackle around your ankle with a chain and a ball, and that's how they confine prisoners to a certain area. Nowadays, we put people in jail cells, but back then, it was just open space, and you would put a fetter on someone's leg, a shackle, a chain, and a ball. This would keep them trapped and confined in a certain area. Well, the Buddha discovered these 10 fetters, these 10 pollutions, these taints or defilements in the mind, and uprooting those is what produces enlightenment. And he shared the tools and techniques of how to uproot those pollutions out of the mind in order to experience this enlightened mental state. So what the Buddha is saying is, hey, I've abandoned the pollution of mind, right? Because of which I may become a heavenly being. Essentially, any of those rebirths that the person was talking about, the Buddha is saying, hey, I've eliminated the pollutions of mind, so I won't be coming back to experience rebirth again. Even the cycle of rebirth in the teachings of the Buddha can be independently verified. Not everybody knows how to do that, and you might not have the wisdom of knowing how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth, but even the cycle of rebirth, you shouldn't ever believe that. Even the 5 realms of existence, the Buddha taught that there's a hell realm, there's an animal realm, there's an afflicted spirit realm, there's a human realm, and there's a heavenly realm. You can actually independently verify these things. You may not know how to do that right now based on your current wisdom, but you can actually develop the ability to independently verify the cycle of rebirth in the 5 realms of existence and all the other teachings that the Buddha shared. But ultimately what he's getting to here is he says, okay, just like a blue, red, and white lotus is born in the water, grown up in the water, stands unsoiled by the water, because a lotus flower essentially is growing inside of a dirty, murky pond, and the roots are deep down into the soil. And then now that plant needs to grow this strong stalk, and as it grows a strong stalk, it rises through the murky water, and it rises over the water, and it blooms. And if you've ever seen lotus flowers, they're beautiful, right? And this is because it's symbolizing what the Buddha taught in his teachings, is that when you understand the path to enlightenment, you understand what your mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it's holding on to the world. It's holding on to the earth, just like the lotus flower. And then you need to grow this strong practice, or this strong stalk, meaning the world is that murky water. You're going to need to grow this strong practice and develop this strong practice, because in the world, people are killing, they're stealing, they're having sexual misconduct, they're lying, they're having substances that cause heedlessness. They might be talking bitter and harsh and hostile and all these other different things. And if you're going to train your mind to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to grow this strong practice, or this strong stalk, with wisdom, realizing those things are unwise. Those things in others are unwise. And as you rise above this murky water, you can bloom like a lotus flower. And that's what the Buddha is saying is, hey, even though I was born in the world and I grew up in the world, I'm unsoiled by the world, meaning that at one time, yes, his mind was soiled. Everybody who's born is unenlightened. But by the time he got to 35, he attained enlightenment and his mind was no longer soiled. So that's what he's sharing here, that remember me, Brahmin, as awake or as a Buddha. A Buddha is a very unique individual. I'm going to be teaching this afternoon about what a Buddha is, but essentially there's 3 criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. Is they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. And then the 3rd criteria is they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after they die. So this is what a Buddha is, and a Buddha is very rare in the world. But in terms of an enlightened being, you'll be able to get to enlightenment, but at that point you won't be a Buddha. Right? So you can become awake. And when we say awake, what we mean is your mind no longer has those pollutions, that you've cultivated wisdom to the point where now you can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy in every situation. Right now, you probably can't do that. Right? Your mind has certain pollutions in the mind. So maybe if your mom or dad says something in a certain way, maybe you get angry or frustrated. Or maybe your brothers and sisters say something in a certain way, you get angry or frustrated. Or maybe you see the news, you might get irritated or annoyed. But it's not those things that are causing your mind to be discontent. It's actually these pollutions that the Buddha discovered inside the mind. That's what's causing the mind to be discontent, this anger and this frustration and all these other discontent feelings. And that's what I'm going to be teaching this afternoon, is I'm going to teach you in a way that you can independently verify how your mind is causing its own discontent feelings. Because as long as you don't understand what's causing your discontent feelings, you wouldn't be able to eliminate them. This is why you keep experiencing anger and agitation and annoyance and guilt and shame and fear and stress and anxiety over and over and over and over and over again. Because if you don't understand what's causing it, then you're not going to understand how to eliminate it. So the very first teaching of the Buddha that you need to understand, which is what I'm going to be teaching this afternoon, you can have this breakthrough where you finally understand what's causing your anger and sadness and all these other discontent feelings and how to actually eliminate it. This is why you can get to enlightenment and you can eliminate the discontent feelings, because it's your own mind that's causing it. If it was everybody else in the world that was causing your mind to be discontent, then that means you have to teach everyone else to do things your way. And the problem is there's 8 billion people in the world. It's not possible for you to train 8 billion people to do things your way. But you can train one mind. There's one mind that you can train, and that's how you can get to the peace and to the joy, just like the Buddha. But you would need teachers and you need guides, where a Buddha would be able to do it by themselves. So here the Buddha is just saying, okay, I'm awake, I'm a Buddha. So the Buddha needed to let people know that he was awake and that he was a Buddha, because during that time, humanity didn't understand what enlightenment was. Nowadays, if you went around telling people you were enlightened or you're awake, right away, that's an indication you're not enlightened, because an enlightened being doesn't walk around and brag or boast that they're enlightened. That's a very good indication that someone's not enlightened. So if anyone ever comes up to you and says, yeah, by the way, I'm enlightened, right away, you just know that they're not enlightened, because an enlightened being's mind is so peaceful and joyful. Just go be peaceful and joyful. Why are you coming around here looking for admiration? Why are you coming around here looking for us to be in awe that you're enlightened? What do you want from us? You want this admiration? Instead, in a person who's enlightened, they would just be peaceful and joyful and just go about their life. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, he needed to let people know that he was enlightened and he was a Buddha and what enlightenment was. And now that we know what it is based on his teachings, we understand that it's unwise to go around and share with people that you're enlightened. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll know that your mind's enlightened, because it'll be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You won't be experiencing any anger, any sadness, any frustration. You'll notice that over a period of time that your discontentedness is gradually diminishing and your peace and your joy is gradually increasing. And then you'll get to a point where 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there's been no anger, no sadness. You'll know that your mind's enlightened, but you won't feel a desire to go around and tell everybody that you're enlightened. In fact, I suggest to students to never even convince yourself that you're enlightened, because if you convince yourself that you're enlightened, one of two things will typically happen. Either your mind will become complacent and you'll be like, yeah, I'm enlightened, I'm so great, look at me, right? Like, I don't have to do anything. Well, if you're complacent, then you're not enlightened. But also, if your arrogance and your pride arises, like, wow, look at me, I'm so enlightened, you're not enlightened, because you've got that ego in there. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not going to be boastful and arrogant and prideful. You're going to be humble and down to earth. So if you go around convincing yourself that you're enlightened, you either become complacent typically, or you'll end up experiencing the arrogance or the pride arising. And in these situations, you're not enlightened yet. So it's better to never even convince yourself that you're enlightened, and just stay dedicated and diligent to continue to learn and grow and develop. When your mind's enlightened, it'll function optimally. It'll have focus, concentration, clarity of mind, deep memory. Whatever it is that you would like to do in life, you'll have wonderful ability to do that. That getting to enlightenment requires a certain amount of learning and growing and developing, cultivating wisdom for multiple years. And if you've gone through a multiple year journey of cultivating wisdom and training your mind, you're not going to just stop cultivating wisdom when you get to enlightenment. When you get to enlightenment, you're going to really appreciate having cultivated so much wisdom. And not only have you cultivated a significant amount of wisdom about the path to enlightenment, but there's other wisdom out there that you can learn as well. And by this point, your mind's functioning so optimally, you could do whatever it is that you'd like to do. So say you have this interest to fly a helicopter, but in the unenlightened state, you're like, there's no way I could ever learn how to fly a helicopter. It's way too complicated. There's no way I would ever do that. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind will be so much more focused and so much more concentrated that by the time you get to enlightenment, if you'd like to learn how to fly a helicopter, you'd have the ability to train to do that, because you'd be able to learn very readily, because you'd have concentration and focus and ability to remember things in a way that you didn't have when you were unenlightened. In the unenlightened state, because of these pollutions or these taints that the Buddha is talking about, the mind is hindered. it experiences what we call muddle-mindedness. The mind can be confused. You could have a really hard time to remember things. If you find it very challenging to remember things, this can be from the mind being polluted. But when you uplift that pollution out of your mind, it'll perform optimally. And now you have focus and concentration and clarity. So the Buddha is just sharing with this Brahmin, hey, Brahmin, I'm awake. Essentially saying, I'm enlightened. Do you guys have any questions on this particular chapter? Remember, those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. You have a question? If you could use the mic, if you could use the mic, that way the people online will be able to hear you. You guys can't see them, but there's a bunch of people here online.
A question, more of a comment, that I think it would be absolutely amazing at the time of the Buddha to just, he's not like, it doesn't have a reputation, he's not necessarily known, and you're in a town and you happen to encounter this monk who's quite radiant, and he starts talking to you, and it's the Buddha, and how enlightening that would be. That's all. Just
I see.
Trying to project myself time having a random meeting with the Buddha at the time of the Buddha.
Yeah.
That's all.
I can share with you that a Buddha, they don't impose their teachings on others. They don't try to convince people to practice their teachings. They make themselves available to those people who are interested to learn and grow and develop. So if you came in contact with a Buddha, I wouldn't suggest that you think, I don't know that you think this way, but I'll just share this. I wouldn't suggest that you think that they're going to somehow say something to you that is going to be super beneficial or enlightening. Instead, it's you that would need to ask that person questions in order to gain insight and gain wisdom. And that's what's going to ultimately help you in your life. Well, if you could use the mic. Mm-hmm. It's not on.
Check. Yep. I guess I could look on Instagram to find out who's enlightened. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. So I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So let's move to the next one. This next one is chapter 142. By the way, here in these chapters, which you have throughout the entire book series, volumes 2 through 13, is you have the words of the Buddha. These are the words that the Buddha spoke. Then what you have here is you have a reference to the original source teachings back to the Pali Canon. And what you can do is you can look to see what was the Buddha saying before this and what was the Buddha saying after this by going back to the original Pali Canon. And then you have words from me that are able to help you to understand certain aspects of the path to enlightenment. So you can see that there. And each of these books have that. And you can get these books for free by downloading them from our website, from buddhadailywisdom.com. You can access all of them for free. You can also go print them if you like. If you like to go print them yourself. Or you can get printed copies here at the temple, or you can order them on Amazon. If you have access to Amazon in your country, you can get them that way as well. So this is how you can get access to all these books. And the very first book is the one to really start with. That's where you're really getting a foundation in the path to enlightenment. It's called Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And you guys can see that here. You can see it online, and you can order it on Amazon as well. So is there someone who would like to volunteer to read this one? For those of you guys that have English as an additional language, this is a great time for you to practice some English. Give you a chance to practice. And I also share this with you too. An enlightened being isn't going to have shyness. And one of the things that the unenlightened mind does is when it feels a certain discontent feeling, it tries to push a situation away and it tries to avoid it. And it thinks that that's going to solve the problem. But the reason why the mind's feeling discomfort or uncomfortable is that it has certain cravings, certain desires, and it's holding on to those. And it thinks if I can push this situation away, that then that's going to solve the problem. But instead, what we teach you is to put your mind in the situation that it finds to be uncomfortable. And when you put your mind in the situation, it trains your mind to let go of the craving, desire, attachment. In addition to meditation and generosity and all the other things you need to do in order to train your mind to get to enlightenment, this is one of the things that you'll need to do is put your mind in situations where it feels uncomfortable and train it to be comfortable. So if you are don't like public speaking or you're shy or something like this is an excellent opportunity to put your mind in a situation that otherwise finds uncomfortable and then train your mind to be peaceful and joyful. And don't worry about how people perceive you and how you're being perceived, because that's what the mind thinks in the unenlightened state. Like, I don't want to be perceived as one particular way or another. So by putting your mind in the situation, it'll actually help you get closer to enlightenment. So is there anybody who would like to volunteer to read? And remember, those of you guys on Zoom, you guys are welcome to volunteer as well. No? Do you like to read? Okay, sure, go ahead.
Testing. The 8 kinds of assemblies. Ananda, these 8 kinds of assemblies, what are they? They are the
batteries, I think, are running out. You can get another mic. Yeah, the lights do go out after you turn it on. It will go out, but sometimes the battery is not fully charged. This is all impermanence, just like the Buddha taught.
Testing. Okay. They are the assemblies of the Khatyas, the assemblies of the Brahmins, the assemblies of the householders, the assemblies of the ascetics, the assembly of heavenly beings, of the realm of the 4 great kings, the assemblies of the 33 gods, the assemblies of Maras, the assemblies of the Brahmas. I remember well, Ananda, many hundreds of assemblies of Khatyas, of Brahmins, of householders, of ascetics, of heavenly beings, of realms of the 4 great kings, of the 33 gods, of Maras, of Brahmins, that I have attended. And before I sat down with them, spoke to them, or joined them in conversation, I adopted their appearances and speech and whatever it may be. And I instructed, inspired, fired, and delighted them with a discourse on the teachings. As I spoke with them, they did not know me and wondered, who is it that speaks like this, a heavenly being or a man? And having thus instructed them,
The batteries disappeared. We need the mic because there's a bunch of people online that are joining us. There's also rechargeable batteries there that you guys can swap those out if you like. Out of the 6, there's got to be at least one that's working.
And having thus instructed them, I disappeared and stayed, and still they did not know. He who has just disappeared, was he a heavenly being or a man?
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, so this book that we're studying here, it's volume 11 of the book series. And it's volume 11 for a reason. It's titled The Realms of Existence. This is where you're learning about the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirit realm, the human realm, and the heavenly realm, and the cycle of rebirth and all the beings in these different realms. This isn't where someone will typically start with understanding the path to enlightenment. There's very beginning teachings. Like I mentioned, it's volume 11 for a reason. It's titled The Realms of Existence. And this is where students are learning the cycle of rebirth. And here, what we've got the Buddha referring to some of these different realms. So while the Buddha taught these different realms, he taught the realms of existence for a reason. It's because when the Buddha taught, he taught the way the world is. He didn't teach the way the world should be, and that if everybody followed these rules and commandments, then the world would become a peaceful place. Instead, he taught the way the world is, and he's explaining to you what's going on and what's transpiring in the world. If you don't understand the way the world is, your mind will be discontent. And this is what you do. Sometimes you might be watching the news and you see something, you're like, I just don't understand why people do this. I don't understand this world, right? Sometimes you might say that to yourself, that you just don't understand the world. And that's what's causing the mind to experience the struggles and difficulties, is its lack of wisdom. One of the things that the world is unaware of is the cycle of rebirth. And by understanding the cycle of rebirth in these 5 realms of existence is actually helping you. Because as you learn the core fundamental teachings of the Buddha and you start lifting the pollution out of your mind, it's not unlikely for an individual to experience recall of their past lives, where you might start experiencing memories from your past lives. You might have already experienced that in this life. If you've ever experienced deja vu, this is residual memories surfacing to the front of your mind, where you're starting to remember certain things from other lives, that you know that these things didn't happen in this life, but these are memories that you have. So if you start lifting out the pollution out of your mind using the teachings of the Buddha that he teaches as the core central teachings, and you started having vivid memories of being murdered or being raped or something like this could really shake you up if you didn't understand that this was memories from your past lives. Or if you started to experience communication from beings from these various realms, this realm of hell, the afflicted spirit realm, the heavenly realm, even though these beings are formless, they don't have physical form, you can sometimes experience communication with these beings. And sometimes people can even see these beings, even though they're formless. As you start eliminating pollution out of your mind, some people can actually see them. So if you start experiencing residual memories of your past lives, if you started having communication with beings from these realms, or you started being able to see these beings and you didn't understand the cycle of rebirth, it could really shake you up. So that's why the Buddha teaches the cycle of rebirth, but this isn't typically where somebody will start in their journey to enlightenment. I suggest for students to set aside the cycle of rebirth when they first get started, because what happened in the past, it's in the past. It doesn't matter right now. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't matter right now. What matters is right now, in the present moment, you're in this human state and you can train your mind and you can get to enlightenment. That's what's really important. And if you focus on the core central teachings of the Buddha, that's what's going to be able to help you to do that. Whereas if you spend so much time thinking about the past or worrying about the future, this is actually going to obstruct you or hinder you from getting to enlightenment. So you'd like to stay focused in the present moment and training your mind now that you're in this human state. So the cycle of rebirth is something that students will at some point learn in their journey to enlightenment, but it may not be where you start. It's kind of unwise to start there. There's other teachings that it would be wiser for you to start. And that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon, and then even tomorrow and this week coming up, I'll be sharing teachings to help people get really started and moving forward on the path to enlightenment. But here, what the Buddha is saying is essentially that he's come in contact with these various communities. He's saying this assembly of Katiyas. What the Katiyas are is, during the lifetime of the Buddha, there was this population of people that were really well known for practicing the natural laws of existence very closely. They didn't even necessarily learn them from the Buddha, but they just kind of understood certain teachings. These natural laws of existence, different people have tapped into them at different times. Like my grandmother growing up, maybe yours too, would say things like, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Right? That's what my grandmother would say. That's like a teaching kind of like what the Buddha teaches about right speech, because it's really unwise to say things that, if it's not wise to say, if you're speaking in unwise ways, you put that out into the world, this is going to come back to you. So if you speak bitter and harsh and hostile, or you gossip or you slander, that's all going to come back to you. So grandma would say things like, if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything at all. So people learn throughout the world about different natural laws. And the Buddha actually put it all in one package and said, this is how you get to enlightenment. This is how you get awake. But these population of people called the Katiyas, they were doing things that were very similar to what the teachings of the Buddha were, in terms of they had very good moral conduct. And the Buddha would oftentimes compliment them about their conduct. And nowadays, we might say that the Thai people are practicing the teachings pretty well. And maybe you might say certain community where you come from, maybe people are very polite or kind or friendly or respectful. Maybe if you are from a different region of the world, you might notice in your community that people are that way, right? Not that you should be going around judging people, people. But the Buddha was just complimenting these Katiyas at different times in his teachings and saying how they're practicing the teachings very closely and that they're going to have a very prosperous life because of that. So here he's saying this community of Katiyas, Brahmin, householders. I explained to you what Brahmin were. Householders are people that are practicing the teachings of the Buddha from the household, right? That they're learning his teachings. They're not ordained. They're a household practitioner like you, living in a home. Then he says this aesthetics, this assembly of aesthetics, that's ordained practitioners. They would refer to them during the lifetime of the Buddha as ascetics, somebody who had given up worldly life, entered into a life of homelessness, and is looking to be able to get to enlightenment. Then he talks about this community of heavenly beings in the realm of the four great kings, the assembly or community of the 33 gods, and then the assembly of Maras. Here, what a Mara is what we would maybe refer to in other traditions as like the devil or Satan or something like this. This is an actual real being. It's a formless being that is interested in causing calamity in the world, but that being can't control you to do anything. It's your decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience, but this being is surely going to attempt to cause calamity in the world, and that's what the Buddha is talking about here. And then he says the assembly of Brahmas. Whenever he's talking about Brahmas, this is how they refer to God, right? Where like a Muslim person might refer to God as Allah, where maybe a Christian might refer to God as God in the English language. Well, during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would refer to God as Brahma. And oftentimes people think that the Buddha didn't teach about God, but he did. You'll see it in his teachings. But he just didn't make God as a central role in his teachings, because God's not the one who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine that. This being God, they don't control you. They don't make things happen in the world. It's your decisions that lead to any particular result. So the Buddha is saying, okay, I've encountered these 8 groups of people, these 8 groups of assemblies. And then essentially what he says is that he's taught them the teachings, that he's given them instruction in the teachings, and he's provided them guidance. That's essentially what he's saying here. Okay? Any questions on this particular chapter? Looks like Rex has a question.
So David, this is a reflection by Buddha on his various reincarnations?
No, this is the Buddha just kind of sharing with his students that, hey, I've encountered these 8 individual communities of individuals. Now that he's a Buddha, he's encountered these 8 different communities, and he's provided them teachings as a Buddha, that he's provided them the teachings of what it takes to get to enlightenment.
So this was after his enlightenment?
Yeah, this is after his enlightenment. Time. Yeah. Because he would teach different groups of people. He would teach householders. He would teach ordained practitioners. Those are kind of like the 2 groups of people that he would teach most readily. But these other groups of individuals would also ask for teachings as well. Okay, looks like Rachel has a question on Zoom. Go ahead, ma'am.
David, I have a question on the word Katis. You just mentioned, does it mean somebody or people like people who have the daily life wisdom, like your grandma, like in your example? Because in dictionary it says Katya is part of the Hindu caste system. It refers to the warriors.
Refers to what?
Warriors.
I'm sorry, your mic's cutting out.
Warriors, like
yeah.
Who fight as a war, as a battlefield. It's part of the Hindu caste system.
Yeah, depending on what dictionary you look at, depending on what resource, it's going to define it different ways. The way that I understand what a Katiya is this is a population of people that lived during the lifetime of the Buddha that he kind of admired for their practice of the teachings. And he talks about in his teachings about how they, greet each other respectfully. They come together respectfully. They live in harmony with each other. And he referred to these population of people as being very prosperous because of their ability to live harmoniously with each other. But you'll find different definitions depending on which book or which dictionary you use.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So let's move to the next chapter. This is chapter 143. I'm not going to have you guys read this one. This particular chapter, it's titled The Marks of a Great Man, 32 Marks of a Buddha. What this is his students had asked about his physical appearance, and he's describing his physical appearance here. And he's walking you through and explaining each aspect of his physical appearance and why he looks that way. And he's relating it to things that he's done in his past lives. So you don't necessarily have to know this in order to get to enlightenment, but one of the benefits of actually reading this is that you can see the qualities that the Buddha cultivated as part of his journey in this life, but also in his previous lives as well. The picture that you see me using a lot of different places related to the Buddha, that this artwork of him, this is the description that they used in order to create this artwork of him, that here he's describing what he looks like. So you can read this at some point. It's actually quite long. That's why I'm sharing with you that I'm not going to have somebody read it, because it's just quite long, but you can study this. And if you have questions, just let me know. Okay. So here, this is chapter 144. Is there someone who would like to read this? No? Nobody would like to read? Okay. Well, what I'm going to do, if you guys aren't interested, is I'll just end class here. If you guys, it's up to you guys. Oh, okay. You would like to read it? Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to use the microphone, that would help us so that the people online will be able to hear you.
Unless you want to read. Yeah, read. No. Benefits for one's confidence in the Tathagata. 1,000 times the world in which the sun and moon revolve and light up the quarters with their brightness is called a 1,000-fold minor world system. In that 1,000-fold world system, there are 1,000 moons, 1,000 suns, 1,000 Cinerus, king of mountains, 1,000 Jambudipas, 1,000 Aparagoyanas, 1,000 Uttarakurus, 1,000 Puba Videhas, and 1,000 four great oceans, 1,000 four great kings, 1,000 heavens of heavenly beings ruled by the four great kings, 1,000 Tavatimsa heavens, 1,000 Yama, 1,000 Tusita, 1,000 heavens of heavenly beings who excite in creation, 1,000 heavens of heavenly beings who control what is created by others, 1,000 Brahma worlds. A world that is 1,000 times 1,000-fold minor world system is called 1,000 to the second power middling world system. A world that is 1,000 times 1,000 to the second power middling world system is called 1,000 to the third power great world system. Ananda, the Tathagata, can convey his voice as far as he wants in 1,000 to the third power great world system. But in what way, Venerable Sir, can the Tathagata convey his voice as far as he wants in 1,000 to the third power great world system? Here Ananda, the Tathagata, fills with his radiance 1,000 to the third power great world system. When those beings perceive that light, then the Tathagata projects his voice and makes them hear its sound. It is in such a way, Ananda, that the Tathagata can convey his voice as far as he wants in 1,000 to the third power great world system. When this was said, the Venerable Ananda said to the perfectly enlightened one, "It is my good fortune. I am very fortunate that my teacher is so powerful and mighty." When this was said, the Venerable Udayi said to the Venerable Ananda, "What is it, you friend Ananda, that What is it to you, friend Ananda, that your teacher is so powerful and mighty?" When this was said, the perfectly enlightened one said to the Venerable Udayi, "Do not say, Udayi, do not say so, Udayi, do not say so, Udayi. Udayi, if Ananda were to die without being free of craving, then because of his confidence, he would exercise heavenly kingship among the heavenly beings 7 times and great kingship in this Jambu Dipa, one of the great continents, 7 times. However, in this very life, Ananda will attain final Nibbana, final enlightenment."
Okay, thank you, sir. So Ananda is one of the Buddha's closest students. What a Tathagata is this word Tathagata is how the Buddha would refer to himself. What we think this word means is one who's discovered the truth or one who shares the truth. He didn't refer to himself in any particular way than using this word Tathagata. This is the main way that he would refer to himself, as the Tathagata, the one who speaks the truth or the one who's discovered the truth. So the Tathagata, the Buddha, is referring to all these different places, and the Buddha's saying that he can essentially, his voice can carry, his teachings can carry all throughout the world. And he's talking to Ananda in this Udaya. Ananda is one of the Buddha's closest students. We think that he was either his cousin or his brother-in-law or something like that. He was with the Buddha from the time that he was essentially first started teaching all the way until the Buddha died. It was 45 years, from the age of 35 into the age of 80. And here, essentially what the Buddha gets to is he's predicting that Ananda will attain enlightenment during that particular life. This is one of the qualities of a Buddha. A Buddha can tell whether somebody's actually going to get to enlightenment in that life or not. So here the Buddha is predicting that yes, Ananda will actually get to enlightenment in that life. That's his last life. And this is actually what happened. After the Buddha died, Ananda actually got to enlightenment. He never got to enlightenment during the lifetime of the Buddha, because the way it appears in the Pali Canon is it looks like Ananda was attached to the Buddha himself. He had a desire, a craving, that when the Buddha announced that he was going to die, because the Buddha knew 3 months before that he was going to die, he let his students know that he was going to die. Ananda is like begging and pleading with him not to die. And this is a clear indication of someone who's attached, not understanding like, okay, of course he's going to die because he's impermanent. And when somebody's doing that, then you know that their mind is not enlightened. Like if you're experiencing sorrow and sadness and misery during the death or at the death of somebody, it's not because of your love that's causing that. It's the mind having attachment. It's craving. It's holding on, wanting things to be a certain way. So with Ananda being close to the Buddha, he was observed by the Buddha multiple times throughout his life. So here he was predicting that Ananda would get to enlightenment, and that's exactly what occurred. Okay, so any questions on this particular chapter?
At the very end of that, David, they mention, do not say that, do not say that. If he were to die without being free of craving, then he would exercise heavenly kingship among the heavenly beings 7 times, and great kingship in this, one of the great continents 7 times. What's he referring to there?
What he's saying is that Ananda had practiced so well that if he didn't eliminate craving, because eliminating craving, you would get to enlightenment. But if he hadn't eliminated craving, he would be reborn back into the world, into the human state, and he would experience, or actually here it's not into the human state, into the heavenly realm, and he would experience this rebirth in the heavenly realm and exercise this great kingship. During the lifetime of the Buddha, there's a certain what we call cosmology that existed, right? That there's certain ways that they thought about the world around them in terms of the various realms. Those 5 realms that the Buddha taught, they're the true realms: heaven, human, afflicted spirits, animal realm, and hell realm. And these can be independently verified today. But within each of those realms, they categorized them. So there wasn't just one heavenly being. The Buddha talked about multiple different types of heavens. Same thing with hell. He talks about many different types of hells and the different beings that are in those different hells. And this cosmology that existed, we don't need to understand that today because it's what existed during the lifetime of the Buddha. The 5 realms is what would be wise to understand in the cycle of rebirth, but all the different subcategories of the heavenly realm and the hell realm isn't something that a student nowadays would need to know in order to get to enlightenment. But that's what he's referring to here.
Well, earlier he's referring to 1,000 times 1,000 to the 3rd degree. Mm-hmm. So in other words, there's more realms than you can even contemplate, nor do you need to. Well, it's just that there's a lot of sub-realms within the realms, within the realms, within the realm.
Yeah. What you're thinking about is the world systems, what we might refer to as a universe. Okay, so the realms and the universe are 2 different things. So here when the Buddha is talking about this world system, you can think about that as a universe, right? And what the Buddha is saying is his teachings carry throughout the world and into multiple universes, because these natural laws that he taught, they're universally true. No matter whether you're here on planet Earth or you're anywhere else in the world, it's the same natural laws that exist all throughout the world. So he's saying his teachings will carry throughout the universe in multiple universes versus the realms. And when we talk about the realms, these aren't distant places. Like sometimes people think about the heavenly realm being really far away and the hell realm being deep down into the core of the earth. But all these beings in these various realms, we're all in the same time and space. So just like there's a human being sitting in this chair, if I got up and left, a dog could potentially come in and sit here too. That's an animal, right? That could sit in this chair. And we're all in the same time and space. The same thing's true about the hell beings, the afflicted spirits, which are ghosts, and then the heavenly beings. They're all right here in the same time and space as us. So oftentimes people think of these realms, because we use the word realm, as being really far away, but it's important to remember that those realms are all, those beings in those realms are all within the same time and space. And here, the world systems that he's talking about are universes. Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like he's saying that even if you don't obtain enlightenment, just the fact that you're making the effort, or in Ananda's case, he would come back as a king of the heavenly realms 7 times. So it sounds like he's saying, even if someone doesn't obtain enlightenment, the pursuit of enlightenment is a good thing, in that you will, in your next life, be better off than you are now.
Yeah, you'll get that throughout the totality of the teachings of the Buddha. He says it very clearly, very directly, not in this particular discourse, but throughout his teachings. You can see that your wisdom is accumulating over multiple lives. Like, you may have learned these teachings in the past. Maybe that's why you have such an affection to a Buddhist place like Thailand, right? And you've married a Thai woman, right? So perhaps that was based on your affection for these teachings in the past. Each individual has had multiple lives, and as you learn from one life to the next, you accumulate wisdom, and those residual memories are still inside the mind. Even though it's a completely new mind and a new body, there's the accumulation of wisdom. So if you learn and practice in this life and you didn't get to enlightenment, it's going to help you in your next life, that you're going to have an improved rebirth and an improved ability to get to enlightenment in that next life. So sometimes when people say, oh, it's so hard to get to enlightenment, and how could I ever do that? Well, you might have actually been pretty close to it in previous life, and now is your opportunity in this life to be able to accomplish that. So any benefits that you experience in this life based on these teachings, of course, you're experiencing them in this life, but you're also going to be able to experience improvements in your future lives if you need to be reborn. But that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to get to enlightenment in this life and escape that whole cycle of rebirth.
Did you once say, I think in a previous lecture, that once you've obtained human form, you don't go back to the animal forms?
It depends on what you've done in this life.
Okay.
If you get to the first stage of enlightenment, then yes, that's true, that you won't be reborn into hell, animal realm, or afflicted spirits. But if you're short of the first stage of enlightenment, there's the potential that you could be reborn back into the lower realms. But getting into the human realm is the most ideal existence, because now you can actually make real efforts, where in those lower realms you wouldn't be able to actually get to enlightenment. In those existences, you need rebirth into the human realm or the heavenly realm. Did you have a question? That I see your hand? If you could use the mic right there. The one on top is working. And I think Rex changed the batteries in most of them.
I was just curious if you're aware of anything in the Buddhist texts or in the teachings currently that about the influence of a departed master. Of course, the Buddha, yes, but like someone like a Chanman or something, or an enlightened teacher who may have been resident in the monastery for 30 years and is left his body And can their influence persist, not simply in the written word, but energetically after their departure? Like, is this part of the teachings within Thai Buddhism as you know of them, or did the Buddha reference it? Like, I know there's a famous Indian saint, Ramana Maharshi, and people were like, when he was dying, they're like, oh no, like, you can't go, like, where are you going? And he said, where could I go? I'm here. I can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Once a being dies, there's no ability for them to create any more influence after that. While someone's alive, they can share wisdom that's going to help people in their current life. But once somebody dies, there's no energy that sticks around that is then going to influence what it is that is transpiring in the world. So like the Buddha, he taught for those 45 years from the age of 35 to 80. And when he died, he died. He's done. There's no more him being around or existing or influencing anything. So he never taught any of those things because it's not true reality. Even though people believe those things, people might say those things. Even you can have Buddhist teachers that say those kinds of things. It's not based in true reality. But unfortunately, there's people who believe those things. But the teachings of the Buddha aren't about beliefs. You can see the truth for yourself that while someone is alive, they can share teachings that are helpful. And then the wisdom can exist in someone's mind to be able to help them in their life. But after they're done, they've died, they're done. There's nothing else that's going to stick around to provide teachings or wisdom at that point. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, so let's go to the next one, which this is chapter 145. Let me see what time it is. Yeah. Okay, would somebody like to read this one? Rex, you got it? Okay. Maybe you take the next one. Mm-hmm.
Recipient and the fruit of such gift. Here, Ananda, by giving a gift to an animal, the offering may be predicted to repay 100-fold. By giving a gift to an unwholesome ordinary person, the offering may be predicted to repay 1,000-fold. By giving a gift to a virtuous, practicing moral conduct, ordinary person, the offering may be predicted to repay 100,000-fold. By giving a gift to one outside the community, who is free from craving for sensual pleasures, the offering may be predicted to repay 100,000 times 100,000-fold. By giving a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the offering may be predicted to repay incalculably, immeasurably. What then should be said about giving a gift to a stream enterer? What should be said about giving a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of once returner? To a once returner, to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of non-returner, to a non-returner, to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of arahatship, to an arahat, to a Pali Buddha. What should be said about giving a gift to a Tathagata, accomplished and fully, perfectly enlightened? There are 7 kinds of offerings made to the community, Ananda. One gives a gift to a community of both male and female ordained practitioners, headed by the Buddha. This is the first kind of offering made to the community. One gives a gift to the community of both male and female ordained practitioners after the Tathagata has attained final nibbana, final enlightenment. This is the second kind of offering made to the community. One gives a gift to the community of male ordained practitioners. This is the third kind of offering made to the community. One gives a gift to the community of female ordained practitioners. This is the fourth kind of offering made to the community. One gives a gift saying, appoint so many male and female ordained practitioners for me from the community. This is the fifth kind of offering made to the community. One gives a gift saying, appoint so many male ordained practitioners for me from the community. This is the sixth kind of offering made to the community. One gives a gift saying, appoint so many female ordained practitioners for me from the community. This is the 7th kind of offering made to the community. In future times, Ananda, there will be members of the clan who are yellownecks, immoral, or unwholesome character. People will give gifts to those unwholesome persons for the sake of the community. Even then, I say, an offering made to the community is incalculable, immeasurable. And I say that in no way is a gift to a person individually ever more fruitful than an offering made to the community. There are, Ananda, 4 kinds of purification of offering. What for? There is the offering that is purified by the donor, not by the recipient. There is the offering that is purified by the recipient, not by the donor. There is the offering that is purified neither by the donor nor by the recipient. There is the offering that is purified both by the donor and by the recipient. And how is the offering purified? By the donor, not by the recipient. Here the donor is virtuous, practicing moral conduct of wholesome character, and the recipient is immoral, of unwholesome character. Thus the offering is purified by the donor, not by the recipient. And how is the offering purified by the recipient, not by the donor? Here the donor is immoral, of unwholesome character, and the recipient is virtuous, of wholesome character. Thus the offering is purified by the recipient, not by the donor. And how is the offering purified neither by the donor nor by the recipient? Here the donor is immoral, of unwholesome character, and the recipient is immoral, of unwholesome character. Thus the offering is purified neither by the donor nor by the recipient. And how is the offering purified both by the donor and by the recipient? Here the donor is virtuous, of wholesome character, and the recipient is virtuous, of wholesome character. Thus the offering is purified both by the donor and by the recipient. These are the 4 kinds of purification of offering. That is what the perfectly enlightened one said. When the fortunate one had said that, the teacher said further, when a virtuous person is to an unwholesome person gives, with trusting heart, a gift righteously obtained, placing confidence that the fruit of action is great, the donor's virtue purifies the offering. When an unwholesome person to a virtuous person gives, with untrusting heart, a gift unrighteously obtained, nor places confidence that the fruit of action is great, the recipient's virtue purifies the offering. When an unwholesome person to an unwholesome person gives, with untrusting heart, a gift unrighteously obtained, nor places confidence that the fruit of action is great, neither's virtue purifies the offering. When a virtuous person to a virtuous person gives, with trusting heart, a gift righteously obtained, placing confidence that the fruit of action is great, that gift, I say, will come to full fruition. When a passionless person to a passionless person gives, with trusting heart, a gift righteously obtained, placing confidence that the fruit of action is great, that gift, I say, is the best of worldly gifts.
Okay, thank you, Rex. So the Buddha here is teaching about generosity, the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, giving your time, effort, energy, and resources. This is part of the path to enlightenment. In order to get to enlightenment, you need to practice a certain amount of generosity. And here, what that does is it helps you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And that's ultimately what the Buddha is talking about at the very end. When he's talking about a passionless person, oftentimes people think about passion as a good quality, but actually passion is based in craving, desire, attachment. If you have passion and you really want to do something, you'll push and push and push and push and push and push. And that's not a wholesome quality. That's going to lead to calamity in your life. It's going to lead to unwholesome results. But if you can gradually work towards something through making wise decisions, maybe you involve other people, maybe you don't, but if you can gradually work towards something without passion, that's the ultimate thing that the Buddha is talking about here at the very end when he says, when a passionless person to a passionless person gives with trusting heart a gift righteously obtained, placing confidence that the fruit of action is great, that gift, I say, is the best of worldly gifts. What he's saying is these are two enlightened people. When one person has eliminated their craving, desire, attachment, and the other person has eliminated their craving, desire, attachment, that's one enlightened being giving to another enlightened being. He's saying this is the best gift ever, right? And he's saying he says, placing confidence that the fruit of action is great. What he's talking about here is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. When you study the teachings of the Buddha, that's what he's teaching you, is he's showing you this cause and effect, or the results of your decision. Slowly but surely, you're learning more and more. You're awakening to the wisdom of the natural laws of existence, namely the natural law of karma. Up here, where he's talking about these different types of offerings to these different communities, here where he's talking about a stream enterer, this is the first stage of enlightenment. When he's talking about a once returner, that's a second stage of enlightenment. A non-returner is the third stage, and an arahant is when someone's actually enlightened. They've eliminated all the 10 fetters. They're referred to as an arahant, or today we might just say an enlightened being. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would use this word arahant. And then he goes through these other individuals, including himself, talking about giving a gift to a tathagata, or a fully perfectly enlightened one. As you're moving through these, it's actually producing more and more benefit. The reason why is because if you're able to come in contact with, let's just say, a Buddha, since you had brought this up earlier, if you came in contact with a Buddha, that person has deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment, and you making an offering to that Buddha, it's not that there's something mystical or magical that's happening because you're making this offering to a Buddha. It's that you're coming in contact with somebody that can now share wisdom with you. And the same thing is true of someone in the first, second, third, or fourth stage of enlightenment. That's your ability to come in contact with that person and then learn something that's going to be beneficial to you. So the Buddha taught you generosity in order to train your mind to let go, because in the unenlightened state with craving, desire, attachment, you'll tend to hold on to things and be somewhat selfish. So if you can practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return, this is actually going to help you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And as you do practice your generosity, you're going to need to practice it in many different directions as you get to enlightenment, whether it's with your family or your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, people like this. But also the Buddha taught to make offerings to individuals who are on the path to enlightenment, to be able to support them and being able to share the teachings, because that's going to be a gift that bears a lot of fruit. Because if you're supporting an individual who's sharing the teachings of the Buddha, this is going to help countless people be able to get to enlightenment. So by supporting an enlightened being or supporting a Buddha or any of these other beings, it helps others to be able to learn these teachings. Not only you, but it helps others too. And that's why the Buddha is saying that these gifts bring great fruit, because it's helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, but it's also helping to support an individual who might be sharing the teachings that would then be able to help others through learning those teachings. Any questions on this one? This is 145. Okay, so you have a question, sir? If you could use the mic.
Are these your translations?
So I didn't do all the core translations. What I've done is I took translations that other people have done, and I updated the word choices, because the word choices that were being used were a little bit outdated, and they weren't necessarily the most, what I would consider to be the most accurate. So I didn't translate from Pali to English because I don't know Pali.
Okay.
But once I saw the English translations, I knew that there was words that needed to be updated. So that's what I've done here.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. And then what our students did is, our students and me as well, working together, we added in these references, and then I added in all of this stuff here in order to help students to understand it. So that's what these books 2 through 13, they're like this. But if you read volume 1, it's not like this. Volume 1 is walking you through to be able to build up your practice, and it's showing you some words of the Buddha here and there, so you can have confidence that what I'm sharing with you is the truth. But these books, volumes 2 through 13, are all the words of the Buddha like this. Yes, sir. the reference numbers, if you take these reference numbers, this is going to connect you back to the Pali Canon. So if you're used to like reading the Bible, like Luke 1:12, right, that'll take you to a certain place in the Bible. But if you search this reference, MN 142, that's going to take you to a specific spot in the Pali Canon, because the Pali Canon is 45 large volumes of books, and this is a reference back to that particular source. Because before this, the Buddha would have been saying something, and after this, these books, they've extracted the teachings, and these are excerpts. So you might be interested to know, what was the Buddha saying before this or after this? Or you might be curious, hey, is David really showing us the real accurate, true teachings? So I've provided that reference to be able to help you to go back and research if you like, but also to help you have confidence that this is the actual words of the Buddha. Because I don't teach that you should believe even these books, that they're actually the real true teachings of the Buddha, that if you learn, reflect, and practice, you can see the truth as you're learning and you're developing your mind, that the teachings are leading to an improved condition of mind. And if you'd like to go back and check the Pali Canon, you can see that. And I've provided you the ability to do that. Okay. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is, I usually here at the temple, what I do is I take this class up to about 11 o'clock, where when I teach online at nighttime, at 9 p.m., when I teach this particular class, I make sure we go through all the chapters because I'm recording that for our podcast and things like that. But here at the temple, what I typically do, because we meditate together, that I just go up until 11. The class that I teach at 9 p.m. from home, we don't actually meditate online. There's other programs that I do meditate with students online, but that particular one I don't, because I like to be sure I get all the chapters included. But here what I'm going to do is just stop here since we've been learning for 2 hours by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for attending the class today. And if you'd like to learn some more, this afternoon from 1 to 4, there's a course called Introduction to the Path to Enlightenment, or Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha, where you can get this introduction, the very first teaching of the Buddha. And then tomorrow there's going to be a class from 9 to about 10:30, 11, where I'm going to be doing meditation, and then I'm going to be teaching you a section of the Eightfold Path, which the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. I'm going to be teaching you about right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is where you're going to learn about the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, around moral conduct. And then starting on Monday, I'm going to be starting a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course, where it's a 5-day course where you're building a real foundation. It starts from 9 a.m. and it goes until 3 p.m. And we take an hour-and-a-half lunch break. And this is great for someone who's interested in developing a foundation in the path to enlightenment based on the teachings of the Buddha, and really making a true effort to be able to get to enlightenment. You'll be able to get a lot of information in a very short period of time, and I walk you through in a way that you can learn, reflect, and practice in a more traditional style of learning, where this is more like a study group. Okay, so if you guys would like to attend any of those classes, whether it's here or whether you'd like to attend online through our live stream or through Zoom, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.